Devlog number 7, I think. This is going to be extremely short because it's being done at the very last minutes. I had not a lot of time to work on the game over the last week, and I have not a lot of time to do the video here, but I figured something is better than nothing. By the way, I know that my cursor is like super invisible here on the recording. Apparently the way OBS captures it, it doesn't invert whatever's under it the way it does in my text editor, so you know, the cursor that's moving around in the nearly black space here is white on my screen, but on the recording it's black, so you can't really see it. I'm looking for a workaround for that, but I haven't found one yet. Again, no time to do anything, but I figured I wanted to post something instead of nothing. Anyway, so I'll show you at least a little bit. I did do some stuff. Oh right, I was messing with my cursor in there, but couldn't find a solution in time. So I got a sort of implicit suggestion that the change amount for a resource should really be a formula instead of an integer. I completely agree, and I have changed it to a formula now. So the health change amount, which was 0, is now just an empty formula. So it takes an input value of whatever the current resource was and outputs nothing different. An empty formula just gives back its input value. The energy formula for the showcase scenario here, yeah, this is showcase scenario, now has a change formula of add 1. So it gets an input of the current resource value and outputs that value plus 1, and that becomes the new value for energy. This is scenario, this test scenario. So if I go here, right, it makes that noise. And a couple of other little things have changed. This behaves better. I can actually click on it now and it responds properly. So right, gaudy colors still, step forward, plus 1. So, you know, looks the same, but works a little differently on the inside. I could change this to add, let's see, how do I do this? Oh shoot, there's a way to do this. Could I figure it out right now? Just to show something. I'm gonna try. Not gonna really build much more of that scenario today. I only have fairly, this is not the file I want, fairly disorganized notes for what I want to do with it. Again, no time for anything. Formula operand result. How is that represented? I'll bet it's not represented in here. Just before I hit the record button, I realized that, oh yeah, champion properties are implemented now. I realized though that loading of them was not. So it understands in that function. Okay, so it just does that. Yeah. All right. So here's what I can do. Just had to remind myself how my code worked. Let's change the starting value of your energy to 1 and change this formula to add itself. This is just a nothing value. This isn't even red, but just because this format is a dictionary, it has to be that way, you know, stuff. It's not perfect, but it should work. So having done this, what this should do is double the current energy value every tick. I really got to figure out why this takes so long. It should not just sit there doing nothing for this long. It's doing something. It'll do its work eventually, but there's no time for anything. That was another thing I wanted to do. So I'll show you what I've done with champion properties. Like I was saying, the absorption system. Have I described what champion properties are? I have. So yeah, I used to have this system where every element had a corresponding absorb property, where you could say like, you know, the fire element exists and this champion, this fire elemental or whatever, will absorb it. So any damage would become positive. But now that will end up being expressed in the damage formula for the fire spell. It'll say, if target has property, some marker property that says absorbs fire, and incoming damage is negative, then flip over to positive, for example. I have that kind of doing a thing here. over here in scenario, test scenario, just so I can see how it would look in the UI. So many things I want to say here, but I don't want to say them. So I guess I don't want to say them. Anyway, just so I could see how it would look in the UI. First of all, there's no more absorbs down here. So if I look at the stats for you just have attack down there. Add to party, stats are, health max through air resistance, and you have the attack ability. If I look at the sword now, grants test property. I should have named it something else, but the property name is test property. If I equip that now onto you, you now have a test property down there. So that's because of your equipment. Is that centered? I guess it is. There's just like this extra space down here that makes it look like that's above the center, but that's the size that it is. The property, no formula reads that property right now, so this is just a test to see how it would look in the UI. If I get more than like 4 of them, that would not fit on screen. However, in real scenarios, I probably won't have this big list of stuff. Kind of like what I was doing in the showcase here. I like how this is a little bit more minimal with, very much more minimal with the number of stats that are there. There's like nothing there. It's nice. Right, I just popped out of full screen. Give it a moment. Right, and I changed something. So if I fight, you now have 1 energy, pass the turn. So you should go from 1 to 2. Protector gained 1 energy. The next turn you should go from 2 to 4. Yeah, Protector gained 2 energy, so it's doubling every time. And it of course can't go above its maximum, so this will just be a +1. Okay, so anyway, that's a formula now. You probably would never configure a formula to do that exactly, but you can if you want to. I'm finding that like these formulas, wherever they are, what am I looking at? These are kind of becoming the star of the show here. Like they are the engine that drives the game, and I'm using them in more and more places. Like I just changed this integer to a formula. And there are other places that I want them to be somewhere you can put things. I think one of the main activities of puzzle design is going to be like figuring out how to write these to do interesting things. Because like if you play a custom scenario in this game, or if you play any 2 scenarios, they might work mechanically very differently, just because of how the formulas are implemented. So it's not like exactly like programming for a custom scenario, but it kind of is. Anyway, so let's give this guy something to do. I'll expand this just a little bit. Let me give him an ability so that I can do more than just go into the battle and wait forever. I mean, my options will be wait or use that ability, so it's still not much, but it'll be something. Just to feel like I've done something today instead of just talked about things I've already done. So let's list an ability here. Okay, so, for example, Protector. Where are you? That's an encounter. Champions, Protector, abilities. I'll give you an attack. So attack will look like what? Where are your abilities? Right here. Okay, so lots of stuff. So many things. Oh, right. There's this whole visual effect thing that I didn't want to talk about. I'll just leave these as is. In fact, I can probably copy. I copied the attack. I don't want exactly that, though. Okay, name is attack. Icon is... Do I have that in my texture packer? No. Pretty sure I do have that icon. Well, I know I have that icon because I'm referencing it here. Okay, so icon attack, sword swing, that's fine. Shine, that's fine. Resource costs, now this is going to cost something. So resource costs, how do those work? I think it's just that. So you have to spend 1 energy to attack. I'm going to change my thing back so that this does that. Okay, so this encounter will be easily beatable because your enemy starts tired out. No it won't, because that's only costing 1 energy per use, so I should make this 2 energy because you're regenerating 1 at the beginning of the turn every time. So yeah, you could just do this forever if it only costs 1. since you can only do one thing per turn, you can't spend more energy than that. All right, self, friend, enemies, single. Sure, you can attack any single thing on either side of the battlefield, but your range is only 1, so you can't punch somebody who's standing like 3 tiles away from you. Spell type, reduce resource. Oh yeah, okay, so spell type. Sure, let's talk about that a little bit. I need to watch the time because, again, this is being done very last minute. Still need to edit and render and upload this and stuff. But let's look at spell types. So spell type, reduce resource, increase resource. These could really be turned into the same thing. I probably should. I don't know why I have them separated right now. Yeah, this should just be spell type, change resource. I've already made that change for status effects. Okay, so I should definitely do it over here. All right, that's a to-do for me. Apply status, remove status, those are different. And then compound, so more than one of these things. So the spell type you choose, let's see, this is pretty arbitrary. I'm using the string here that is the constant that I use in the code, but other ones are just symbolic, like these. The actual code constant is different here. I should make that consistent. All right, another to-do for me. Not that it matters, because like nobody really needs to look at this file once I implement the scenario editor, so it really doesn't matter. It's fine. Right, so reduce resource health with the physical element. Do I have any elements here yet? I don't. Okay, so with no elements, we'll change that to physical later. By not strength, that's not a stat that exists. In fact, this doesn't use the stats at all. This just does 2 damage. The protector, I seem to remember, has a defense of 1. However, that is not... While that is true, the defense formula is not implemented here. So you know what? Okay, fine. Let's give this an element. Non-elemental damage cannot be dampened, because it needs an element to have the formula that will modify this based on whatever elemental defense there is. Target sound hit, target visual effect. Don't worry about this. We'll talk about it someday, but not today. So I gave you the attack ability, right? Yes, you have it. I defined the attack ability. The attack ability, however, references an element that currently doesn't exist. So I need a physical element, which I think I do in fact have in here. Elements are here, physical. All right, sure. Copy that over. Name is physical, icon sword, icon shield. I think I have both of those. I have the shield, but not the sword. Okay. Oops. So that's a sword. It's a shield. What are these used for? I'm questioning some of my decisions here. All right, so damage adjustment formula. So here in the element is what determines that, like, this incoming value of 2 is going to be modified by this formula when it is in the physical element. Okay, endurance. Okay, so the way this formula works, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's a little bit complicated. But basically this is saying if the incoming value, which is called result, which might be confusing, but you know, the input value is the same as the output value, so I just call it result. If the result is less than 0, then it's dampened by the endurance linearly, but it can't be dampened so much that you get healed by it. I want basically that. In fact, I want exactly that, just with endurance. I think I named it something different here. What are my stats? I called it defense. Yeah, this will work the same as how defense worked in test scenario. So this is fine. So if this is a change by a negative amount, you know, you're taking damage to that resource in this element, the physical element. So right, if left-hand side of the if statement is the result, which is the input value, operator less than, right-hand side of the if statement is constant 0. So that's just writing, you know, this is exactly equivalent to this. So I have this here because if I also wanted an else, I would do it like this. So that's how I do an else for the formula if statement. I could only have a false, I could only have a true, I could have both, then if and an else. Anyway, right, so add the target stat of defense to the result, and then clamp it to a maximum of 0. So if you're taking 2 damage and you have 3 defense, you shouldn't heal by 1. That should just absorb it down, well, up to 0. All right, so this should work. The protector has 1 defense by default, so we'll be spending 2 energy each, punching each other for 1 damage because it'll go from 2 to 1. The attack is for 2, the defense is 1. And since the enemy starts with less energy, I should be able to win just by attacking constantly. Oh, and I should also make the enemy attack. So instead of wait, so your action will be to use your ability. Now, how does that work? Index 0. So that means you're using the ability, which is defined here in the champion record's abilities, at the index of 0, so it is the first one in the list, the attack ability. You know, if I had something else here, then that would be index 1. But all I have is attack, so that's the only valid index for that. Target type, enemy, sure, sounds good. That one should be self-explanatory. Target spread, single. The attack ability can only spread to single. Enemy is a valid target. So if I told it to do anything else, it would just sort of default to single. There's like a fallback system. So if I said to spread to, I don't remember what the symbolic constant for this is, but like I want to punch everybody in the opposing battlefield. It'll just say, well, you can't do that, so I guess you're just punching one thing. Anyway, but I'll specify it this way. Target row, target index. Again, there's a fallback system for this, so it doesn't matter where I target on the battlefield, really. Since there's only one target, it will find that one and target it. So I can put this anywhere, as long as it's in range, and it will be. All right, so you will be attacking, and I can input my own attack now, right? This should all work. No recompiling, just recopying resources, because the resource here is the only thing that changed. Though it recopies every resource when one changes. That's fine. I probably don't need to change that. And it doesn't load. Because visual effect shine and slash right, okay. Visual effects can't just be specified like that. I have to actually do some work in this file to make them work. So no visual effects. All right then. So that was slash actor visual effect is that. Yeah, so I'll talk about those once I get to them. But that won't be today. All right, so those were the only things it ended up complaining about, but it does stop reading at the time that it hits the first complaint, pretty much. No, that was happening during validation. So it reads the file first, you know, just actually loads the JSON stuff into an in-memory structure. Then it does the second pass through what it loaded and does a validation. So like, you know, it is a valid string to say that the champion has the ability FDSNDOFNALDFSASAD. I didn't have to type that many characters, but you know. So like that'll get past the loading stage, but then it will validate that and say, right, so once I have it in the in-memory structure and I can inspect it, it'll say, well, is there an ability named FDNSASD, whatever the heck it was? No, there isn't. So then I'm going to throw that error and stop everything. Anyway, and since it failed in the validation step, those 2 errors should have been the only 2 errors because it spits all of those out. It doesn't have to terminate reading because it's already read the whole file. All right, so this should work now. Encounter 1. So you now have the ability of attack. Costs 2 energy, can target those things. That's the single symbol. Range is 1. Oh yeah, I added range here, so that's no longer an incomplete information thing. You can see the range. And decreases health by 2. And I can see the formula I typed in there, which is constant 2. I cannot see the formula I typed in for the elemental defense yet. That is some incomplete information that I will need to fill in. So you also have the attack because you're the same base champion. So you're going to attack. Just the defaults are fine. First enemy. Doesn't matter where I put you. What happens if I put you here? I think you'll just lose this ground on your first turn. Protector's turn. Had no valid targets. Okay, so it doesn't happen immediately. It happens after the turn. So basically, by putting you farther back, I guess basically you just waste a turn. If you had a ranged attack, you could have hit that. But now the enemy team advances and overtakes your ground here. And now you are in range of this one. You gained 1 energy at the start of your turn. You spent 2 energy. Didn't have a visual effect or sound, but that's fine. Your energy went down to 1. Did play the sound, doesn't have the visual effect, that's fine. Used the attack ability, and my health goes down by 1 because that attacked for 2, and I have 1 defense, and that dampens the attack. Alright, so my turn, I lost that ground, now I'm in the front row. My target, whatever the heck it was, defaults to this because this is the only valid one that's in range. Spend 2 energy, use attack, health goes down by 1. Alright, so you'll gain 1 energy, do that, attack me. I'm down to 8. Oh, your health started low, so even if you didn't run out of energy, I would still win. Alright, so now what's going to happen here? You'll gain 1, but you'll fail to spend it. So you just couldn't do anything. In fact, that's going to happen to me in a moment. Now you regenerated enough to be able to do it. Okay, so I still had enough. So I'll have 1 failed attack here on my side. Anyway, so this up and down energy system is one of the main differences in feel between this showcase and the test scenario that I've shown so far. Energy management is going to be one of the main activities here. So you'll have to actually use the wait command intentionally. Maybe somebody will have an ability that can reinvigorate somebody's energy, but they have to use their turn and some of their resources to do so. Stuff like that. Anyway, so this encounter can be won. Technically it can be lost if I would input a bunch of wait commands and wait long enough. So this is almost gameplay. But anyway, you can see how this is starting to take shape from this text file we've been writing for it. Now I have a star here because I got the encounter done. That will have saved my solution so I can look back at it when I want to. I put that there for some reason, Don't have a point system yet. We'll talk about that some other day. Okay, cool. So I need to stop here because, oh boy, I've gone for way too long. Hope this is up by the normal time. If it's late, this is why. All right, I'll see you next time, hopefully a little more prepared.